morning. Good morning. Let's understand the profile of the audience over here. So humor me with some answers. How many of you are 19 and below? Okay, so that's about 55% of the crowd. Logically speaking, everyone else is about 20. See, I'm intelligent. All right, Miss K definitely set a context for all of us. She has told in as many words that TED speakers tend to be outstanding scarecrows. So since she has set a reputation for all of us, let me add to the misery. I also happen to be a professor teaching teenagers, and normally professors receive analytical feedback, and my students gave me anatomical feedback, not to fit to the norm. Perhaps not fitting to the norm creates circumstance to create something new. But why are we talking about all this? After all, I come from a generation whose first tendency on seeing a teenager is to say, please fall in line. But then, are today's teenagers any different than the teenagers who were there in India in 1947? Unlikely. They too had dreams. They were also aspirational. They were also irreverent. They were irreverent to the extent that if there was a soldier from the British Army who pointed a gun to them, they took the bullet. Not only that, if somebody was standing behind and he saw the other person take the bullet, and the line and the file was empty, he stepped forward and said, go ahead, shoot the next one. Fully realizing that act might lead to an outcome where the benefit of that particular outcome, that teenager is definitely not going to see. And we are in Chandigarh, barely 3 hours away from Jallianwala Bagh. We don't have to speak more about those kind of sacrifices. So those folks did fantastic jobs. They achieved fantastic outcomes. We're not going to talk about all the teenagers in this country ever since 1947. We're going to get directly into the teenagers are here today, or all other teenagers across the country. And we're going to come to it eventually. But let me ask you this question. How many of you wish, rather, let me ask you this. I'll ask you a question where the answer can be a yes or a no. So if you wish to answer it as yes, say a yes. And if you want to answer it as a no, please stay dead silent. Do you want India to be developed? Yes. Do you think India is developed?
Each year, 4 million people graduate in this country with 18 years plus of formal education. Each year in our country, just about 2 million of those people, not those people, but just about 2 million people get absorbed into organized employment. And when I say organized employment, it does not necessarily mean that every job in an organized employment opportunity requires you to be a graduate. Effectively, every year in our country, we generate 2 million excess full graduates. Little are we surprised, therefore, that when you walk across to a Citibank ATM, and if you ever choose to ask them, that particular security guard, what have you studied? He would say, I'm a BCom student. Little should we be surprised that when you walk across to a fuel station and find a person who is filling gas into your vehicle, and you ask him, what is your qualification? Don't be surprised if he says he's a BSc graduate. Let me put the magnitude of the problem in perspective. What is 2 million excess? 2 million excess graduates effectively means 2 Chandigarhs cropping up every year, putting their hands out and say, give me jobs. 2015, 2 Chandigarhs will come up. Full population of that 2 Chandigarhs saying, give me jobs. 2016, another Chandigarh will come up, and one more. 2017, 2 more Chandigarhs. Imagine by the time you folks complete your education, and assuming that each of you are going to spend another 4 or 5 years in education, there will be at least 8 more Chandigarhs added to this country, each of them looking for jobs. Now that's the unique situation for the teenagers that are present here today. But then, somewhere some good news came along. And I have one piece of paper of that good news in my pocket. And that good news was, incidentally, it came from a big wealthy boy. And this big wealthy boy was not a big wealthy boy of India. This man, or this institution, was a big wealthy boy of the world. It was Goldman Sachs. And this boy is so wealthy, he can define destinies for a lot of leaders around the world. And with the Goldman Sachs brand behind, 2 people, one of them being Rupa Purushothaman, came up with a report in 2003 October. It was called as Dreaming with the Bricks. Not the bricks with which we make buildings, but it was BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And the report said, by 2050, that is 35 years from now, India will be the 3rd largest economy in the world. The audience roared. And since we are at TED conference, TED 2009, Mysore, Hans Rosling famously picked up his biodegradable, eco-friendly pointer and even chose to pick a date. And he said on 27 July 2048, the money in the purse of an average Indian will be same as the money in the purse of an average US citizen. Even more good news. Time for me to pick up the paper. It's a very strategic move because I have my notes behind, just in case I forget something. And this is page 9 of the 24-page BRIC report. Let me draw some contradictions between Hans Rosling and Dominic Wilson and Rupa Purushothaman, who came up with the BRICS report. The BRICS report said, India as an economy will be the 3rd largest. Whereas Hans Rosling said, the average Indian will earn as much as the average US citizen. The BRICS report said, while India may be the 3rd largest economy, of the 6 largest economies in the world at that point in time, the Indian would still be the poorest of those 6. Now, what's the connect to teenagers? Whether it was Hans Rosling or whether it was the BRICS report, let's not get into the semantics of it. Let's assume both of them are auguring good news for India. If 2050, India has to be a developed nation, nobody has told us, how do you get there? Second, who gets you there? So let's solve the problem. If 2050, I'm a developed nation, then at least 15 years before, and I'm taking some estimates over here, 15 years before 2050, 2035, there must be some economic engines working in India which is generating that wealth. You can't overnight become developed. You should allow those economic engines to work for 15 years to generate that wealth. That means in 2035, who is managing those economic engines in India must be managing some great complexity. And assuming that they were managing great complexity in 2035, and we expect that somebody who's managing that responsibility at that point in time has at least 20 years of work experience, that person must have started working in 2015. And my dear friends, the most damning revelation of all this is, it's not me who is going to develop India. It seems like it's you people. Because who's going to look for a job in 2015 and start their career? It's not me, it's you. But did anyone ever come and tell you that this is a job at hand for you? And that's precisely what gets us mighty worried. While the world paints a fabulous picture for India. And rightly so, because we need to grow. And when we have big brands telling that we can grow, then it only makes our case so much more easy if we really wish to grow. But where we have missed is we have not communicated it back to your youngsters, the teenagers. What is a teenager thinking? 2005, I was a general manager in Accenture in Bangalore. And as is a practice with the human resources department, they used to call the relatively senior leaders into the campuses for pre-placement talks. I went into one of the second best college, commerce college in the city, which also happens to be the top 10 commerce colleges in the country. And of course, in the pre-placement talk, you make the case for the company. As is my nature, I speak more through questions, less through statements, but eventually I got better, and some sense developed in me. So I asked this question, 250 students sitting over there, all of them wishing to hear about Accenture. The first question I asked was, for how many of you is Accenture your dream company? Lots of hands went up. So one girl I asked, before I speak any further about Accenture, could you please tell me what does Accenture do? She said Accenture manufactures computers. I can assure you we never did such a thing. Never ever. Of course, we ended up making people look like computers, but we are never close to making computers. Now there's an irony to this whole situation, because if this girl stood up on the roof of her college and looked in one particular direction, she would have seen the largest facility of Accenture in the world without any telescope. And yet, we had this disconnect. It gives me an insight into the state of the mind of the student. I'm going to give you another example from the same Bangalore city. But this was slightly later, in 2009. By when we had already started this organization where we are trying to see if we can draw a better connect between the classroom and the reality out there in the real world. A very well-to-do school, very aspired school. So much so the principal said, I'm not sure what sense are you going to make to them, because these guys are sorted guys. They might drive you out of the classroom. I said, then it's actually a fantastic opportunity for me, because I go and speak to students who seem to have not figured out what they want to do. So if your students have figured out what they want to do, maybe I can learn from them, and I can pass on some of that wisdom to my students. She said, fine, humor yourself. So I went into this class of 70 class 11 students who had nose anywhere above horizontal, and who told me, we are very sure what we want to do. We want to be in IT. And therefore, we want to be in IIT. And therefore, you are preparing for JEE. I said, okay. I will not meddle with you. But help me with answers to some questions. I still had the bad habit at that point in time to speak in questions. So I asked them, you want to be in IT? Wipro and Infosys comes and makes a job offer to you. Whom will you join? Infosys. Okay. Infosys and Microsoft comes and makes an offer to you. Whom will you join? Microsoft. Microsoft and GE comes and makes an offer to you. Whom will you join? Who is GE? Okay, sorry. Microsoft and Ford comes and makes an offer to you. Whom will you join? Ford. Okay. I don't know what Ford does, but please tell me, what do you think Ford does? They said it makes cars. Anything to do with IT? No. But you said you want to be in IT. Yeah. But you're in Ford. Yeah. Confused. So let's go back. Why Infosys? Why not Wipro? International company. Oh, Infosys is more international than Wipro? Yes. That's what the student said. That's not me. What about Microsoft? Even more international. But why Ford? It's international as Microsoft, but it's about something I want to do. Great. Why was that particular student hankering for IT? Cutting a long story short, because it was a doorway, it was a way, a pathway to a particular lifestyle. That's their value system, nothing against it. But if you can access your value system while doing something you're interested in, why not? But what's the point that I'm trying to drive? After all, in TED, it's all about ideas. What's the idea I'm trying to send across? I'm going to go back to the page number 9 of the BRICS report. The page number 9 says, in 2050, India as an economy will be $27 trillion, and that will make India the third largest. But something has not been told, yet the numbers say it. Because 5 years before in those projections, India is expected to be $18 trillion. In 5 years, it is expected that India is going to add $11 trillion. To give you a sense of what is $11 trillion, that's the size of US economy today. And the size of India's economy today is just about $2 trillion. And in these comparisons, purchasing power parity does not apply because we are talking of completely different scenarios. That means it is expected that India will grow, but it's also expected that India has to do that humongous job of adding an entire US economy, which the US itself took 70 years, in 5 years. Okay, we are in the realm of possibility. So our teenagers can do it. But then, are they in that particular state of mind? How do I put them in that particular state of mind? And that's precisely what made us get into this Junior Achievement India journey, wherein it's not 35,000 students, but till date we have reached 350,000 students with whom we have only one conversation. And that conversation is, how do you believe in yourself? How will you believe in your dream? Because please remember one thing, and as I conclude my talk, when we speak this story, invariably everybody points out to that miserable educator and they say, you know what, the educator is doing a bad job. But I come from an organization where I have the privilege of seeing educators across all other countries, and I recently returned from Asia Pacific Conference, wherein be it Japan, be it Singapore, be it Korea, everywhere it seems like students are still in the same state of mind. So it doesn't seem like the problem is students. We are in a system where we are churning students who are designed to maintain status quo. It's only incidental that the status quo of those countries is different than the status quo of our country. So we need to, you folks need to do the additional job of shifting that status quo. And in part, that shift requires all of you and all of us to make the teenagers believe that they can. 15 years back in Delhi, if a laborer had to take his pregnant wife across the length of Delhi on a hot summer day because she is going through labor and he needs to go to a specific doctor, that laborer had to spend 600 rupees on a cool cab. And that 600 rupees was 20 days salary or maybe 15 days salary for the laborer. But 15 years hence, the same laborer can take his wife at 17 rupees through what's called as a metro. That metro uses alloy coaches. Those alloy coaches have a particular lifetime. If a chemical engineer comes up with a better alloy and increases the lifetime of that coach by a factor of 2, that means the coach can ferry passengers double the volume. That means I need to recover the cost from double the volume of passengers. That means the cost per passenger goes by 2. If I'm a good chemical engineer, I can still make people's life easy by being a good chemical engineer. I need to show people the possibility. I need to show people it's good to dream, believe in your dreams, but let me help you interpret your dreams and take it into the realm of reality. That is what we do at Junior Achievement India. That is what we have been doing for the last 10 years. That's what we have been doing it for almost 350,000 students. Thank you for listening.